I will ensure we recover all the money that needs to be recovered. That was Frank Bisignano's first public statement, the new Social Security Commissioner, immediately after taking office. And what's more concerning is that the policy of recovering 100% of monthly benefits has officially returned. No more advance warnings. No more 10% cap like before. If the system decides you've been overpaid, your monthly check could be completely withheld. If you're living on Social Security benefits, this is a time to be more vigilant than ever before. In this video, we'll help you understand what's really happening and, most importantly, what you need to prepare right now to avoid being caught off guard. Please share this video with your loved ones, and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated with the latest information about the benefits you deserve to be protected. Because even a small policy change can create massive consequences in everyday life. And this time, you need to be proactive. Finally, we need to assess the ability to repay and address the issue. I will ensure we recover all the money that needs to be recovered. But on the other hand, we need to be humane in this process. At precisely the moment when the Social Security system faces its greatest pressure in many years, Frank Bisignano, a man from the corporate finance world, has been officially confirmed by the Senate as the Commissioner of the Social Security Administration. What has caught the public's attention is not just his background, but also the timing of his appointment when the SSA is reinstating a policy allowing the recovery of all monthly benefits from those deemed to have been overpaid. This isn't a new policy, but its comprehensive reapplication has left millions of beneficiaries, especially the elderly, disabled, and low-income households, feeling anxious, even genuinely confused. During his congressional hearing, Bisignano asserted that he would ensure the agency recovers all money that needs to be recovered. But he also added that we need to be humane in this process. This statement, seemingly balancing responsibility with compassion, has placed millions in a waiting position, waiting to see what he'll do next, not just what he said at the hearing. Because for those living on every dollar of their monthly benefits, a notice from the SSA about recoupment could mean they no longer have money for food, rent, or medications. They can't wait for a policy to be amended in the coming months. Praxis. They need answers now whether that vital financial lifeline will continue to arrive in their accounts on time. The appearance of an executive who previously led major financial companies might bring expectations of efficiency, technological change, and the ability to minimize payment errors. But simultaneously, it makes many people uneasy. Because managing a welfare system isn't like running a corporation. This isn't a place to optimize profits or cut costs like a quarterly report. This is where people expect understanding and fairness, especially when most beneficiaries are in the most vulnerable phase of their lives. People aren't asking Bisignano to perform miracles, but they hope he won't just see numbers and forget the people behind that data. They hope the recovery policy will include more notice time, installment options, reasonable exemption conditions, basic things that determine whether someone can continue living normally. And above all, they need to know that their personal data, which is becoming more vulnerable than ever, will be genuinely protected, not viewed as a part of technical improvements in a federal system. Between hope and doubt, people's psychology now feels suspended. On one hand, they want to believe positive change can happen. But on the other, they've learned that if a system doesn't truly put people first, then any reform, no matter how good it sounds, can become a burden. And Bisignano is now the person holding the key to that. Not just as a commissioner, but as someone who can either ease or intensify the growing anxiety in America's heart. Bisignano has promised not to privatize Social Security or cut benefits. But he hasn't ruled out implementing structural reforms in the future. Frank Bisignano steps into the role of Social Security Commissioner at a time when this system is under a microscope. Questions revolve not only around policy but focus on the very person who has just been given the power to lead. And here, what catches the public's attention isn't found in lengthy statements, but in the choices he'll have to make in a system under pressure from budget, technology, and public trust. Bisignano has declared that he will modernize the SSA with advanced technology, using artificial intelligence and data tools to reduce payment errors, increase efficiency, and improve service capabilities. For many, this sparks a glimmer of hope, because too many times they've suffered consequences from system errors, from incorrectly processed numbers to automated notices sent without explanation. If the system could truly become more accurate, transparent, and less error-prone, that could bring significant change for millions living on each payment. But technology is only part of the story. The rest is how that technology is deployed and who is allowed to access it. Bisignano's connection to Doge, an organization backed by Elon Musk that has been linked to privacy violation concerns, makes many people worried. When asked whether Doge would be given access to the SSA's sensitive data systems, Bisignano didn't provide a straightforward answer. And in an era where personal information can be easily exploited, that ambiguity is enough to sow unease. Additionally, Bisignano hasn't ruled out the possibility of structural reforms in the future. To many, this sounds like a necessary step, because clearly, the SSA cannot continue operating as before if it wants to meet society's growing needs. But it's precisely from this phrase, structural reforms, that concerns begin to emerge. People have witnessed reforms called necessary but ultimately resulted in cuts, streamlining, and limited benefits. No one is truly certain whether the next changes will protect the vulnerable or continue shifting responsibility to individuals while the system becomes increasingly complex. And so, the community's emotion isn't exactly opposition, nor is it trust. It's a waiting state mixed with skepticism and desire. People want to believe that someone who has worked at high levels in the private sector will bring discipline and efficiency to the SSA, but they also worry that this very style, streamlined, decisive, and sometimes cold, will leave behind those who cannot adapt quickly enough to the pace of reform. At this point, no one can firmly declare whether Frank Bisignano has come to heal or to tighten. But clearly, his every step from a decision about data to a change in the recovery process is being closely monitored. And with a system directly affecting the livelihoods of millions, trust cannot be created through promises alone, but only built through concrete actions. In this context, no one can protect your interests better than yourself. Have you ever asked yourself if one day your Social Security check doesn't arrive on time, how will you manage? Perhaps you don't want to think about it. But at this moment, when the new SSA leader has just taken office and hasn't ruled out structural reforms, not thinking about it might no longer be safe. No one is saying everything will change tomorrow. But as you can see, this system is moving. Minor technical adjustments or major policy changes. And each time there's an adjustment, those affected first are usually those who aren't prepared. Not because they're lazy, but because they believe they'll be protected. They think if they've done nothing wrong, there's nothing to worry about. But reality is different. In the system's eyes, a small error in address, an outdated record, or an overpayment due to a computer error is enough to get you flagged. And if no one speaks up, the system just keeps running, as if no one ever had problems. So, don't wait for someone to knock on your door reminding you it's time to check everything. Do it for yourself. You don't need to do anything grandiose. Just start by reviewing your mail, SSA account, payment schedule. Confirm your personal information. Update your records if something's wrong. If you receive a letter requesting repayment, don't stay silent. You have the right to ask questions, request delays, exemptions, and even object if it seems unreasonable. Because if you don't act, who will act for you? Not the staff at SSA, not the people sitting in Washington offices, and certainly not anyone discussing structural reforms over there. Especially when you already have so much to worry about: medications, living expenses, mounting paperwork. But if you just take one step today, check your benefits, note your check schedule, or call if something seems wrong, then you've already kept part of your life safer. Additionally, in sensitive times like now, it would be an oversight if you didn't closely follow official notices from the SSA, or constant updates from truly reliable sources. Because if a real reform begins, those affected first aren't strangers, but very likely those who don't pay attention to their records, don't update personal information, or don't even know they're on a list suspected of incorrect payments. And by then, it's too late to react. Anxiety is perfectly normal, especially when daily life depends entirely on a fixed payment. But anxiety can't be the reason we sit still and wait. This is the time to prepare, not just with money, but with knowledge, with understanding about yourself in this system. What type of benefits are you receiving? How much is the payment? Has your file been verified? Are there any recent notices from SSA that you haven't read carefully? Those seemingly small things are actually the keys to avoiding a passive situation if sudden changes occur. And the reality is, when the SSA leader doesn't make a clear commitment to maintaining the status quo, we can't bet our future on that silence. Now, being proactive isn't just advice. It's mandatory because you, not anyone else, are the first and perhaps the only one concerned enough to keep your benefits from being swept away by reforms you weren't warned about. At a time when changes can happen anytime and faith in the system is more fragile than ever, what matters most isn't waiting to see what the government will do, but how you'll prepare. If you understand your benefits clearly, keep accurate records, closely monitor notices, and are ready to act when necessary, then, even if reforms come, you won't be caught off guard. We'll continue to stand with you, updating the latest changes, clearly explaining each policy, and helping you know what to do so you're not left behind. Don't let a sudden administrative decision disrupt your life. Be proactive and stay fully informed. If you find this content helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to not miss the next video. We'll analyze proposed policies more deeply and how each beneficiary group might be affected, so you can always remain in control of your own story.